Texas, June 1925. A boy was born to a sharecropper family in Kingston, the seventh of 12 children, poor as dirt and getting poorer. His name was Audie Murphy. The family lived in a 3-room shack with a dirt floor and no electricity. 14 people in 3 rooms, sleeping wherever there was space. In summer, the heat was unbearable. In winter, the cold came through the walls. His father sharecropped cotton and made almost nothing. What little money came in, he drank. When Audie was 12, his father walked away one morning and never came back, just left. No explanation, no goodbye. Audie's mother tried to hold things together. She picked cotton, washed clothes, took in laundry, worked herself to exhaustion. But 12 children and no husband meant it was a losing battle from the start. At 12 years old, Audie became the man of the house, not by choice, but by necessity. He had to feed his brothers and sisters, keep them alive somehow. So he learned to hunt. His mother had an old single-shot .22 rifle, and Audie would take it into the woods before dawn. He'd look for rabbits, squirrels, possum, anything he could shoot. If he came home empty-handed, the family didn't eat that day. It was that simple. So he learned to shoot perfectly. 1 bullet, 1 kill, every single time. He had to. They couldn't afford to waste ammunition on missed shots. His sister Corinne remembered Audie going hunting when he was 5 years old, so small he had to drag the rifle behind him because he couldn't carry it properly. He came back with a rabbit bigger than he was. "How'd you get him?" she asked. "Waited until he was real close," Audie said. "Then I shot him." He was 5 years old. By the time he was 16, Audie could hit a moving target at 50 yards without thinking about it. Best shot in the county, maybe in all of Texas. But shooting rabbits doesn't pay the bills or put a roof over your head. In 1941, his mother got sick. Audie was 16. She died in his arms, and her last words were simple. "Take care of your brothers and sisters." "I will, Mama," he said. She closed her eyes, and that was it. Audie buried her in the family plot. There was no money for a headstone. After that, his siblings scattered. Relatives took some. Orphanages took others. The family was broken, gone. Audie was alone. 16 years old with a 5th-grade education. No money, no family, no future. He could see. He worked whatever jobs he could find. Picked cotton, pumped gas, fixed cars. He made barely enough to eat. Then came December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. Audie was at the gas station when he heard the news on the radio, and something changed in him that moment. The next morning, he walked to the Marine recruiting office. The recruiter looked him over. "How old are you, son?" 18, Audie lied. He was 16. Height and weight? 5'5", 110 pounds. The recruiter shook his head. "Sorry, Marines need men at least 5'6", minimum 120. You're too small." "I can fight." "I'm sure you can, but regulations are regulations." Audie tried the Navy. Same answer. Too small. He tried the Paratroopers. Too small. Finally, he went to the Army Infantry, and they were taking almost anyone by then because the war was getting worse. On June 30th, 1942, Audie Murphy enlisted in the United States Army. He was 17 years old, still lying about his age, weighing 112 pounds soaking wet. At the induction physical, the doctor looked at this skinny kid and said, "Son, you sure about this? You could get hurt out there." Audie looked at him with eyes that had already seen too much. "Don't worry about me, sir." "What makes you think you can be a soldier?" "I've been taking care of myself for a long time," Audie said. "Figure I can handle this." The doctor stamped his papers and cleared him for duty. Audie Murphy was going to war. He had no idea what he would become, and the recruiters who had rejected him for being too small would live to regret it. Because this farm boy, this skinny kid from dirt-poor Texas, would become the most dangerous soldier America ever produced. Camp Walters, Texas, July 1942. When Audie arrived for basic training, he looked around at the other recruits and realized they were all bigger, stronger, older. They looked at him and started laughing. "They letting children in the Army now?" "Hey kid, you lost?" Boy Scouts are down the road. Tiny, you sure you're in the right place? Audie said nothing, just stared at them with those hard eyes he'd developed over 16 years of surviving. The laughing stopped pretty quick after that. On the first day of physical training, running, push-ups, pull-ups, Audie discovered he couldn't do a single pull-up. Not one. His arms just didn't have the strength. Drill Sergeant Thompson was a big man, 6'2" and 220 pounds, and he looked at Audie hanging from that bar like a question mark. "Murphy, what the hell are you doing up there?" "Trying, Sergeant. Trying. My grandmother could do better." "Drop." Audie dropped. "You got two choices, Murphy. Quit now and save everyone time, or get stronger fast." "I'll get stronger, Sergeant." "Yeah? How you planning to do that?" "Don't know yet, sir, but I will." Thompson looked at him for a long moment. "You got something, kid. I don't know what it is, but something. Don't waste it." Every night after the other recruits went to sleep, Audie trained alone. Push-ups until his arms gave out, sit-ups until his stomach cramped, running until his legs burned. 2 weeks later, he could do 5 pull-ups. 4 weeks, 10. 8 weeks, 20. He was still the smallest man in his company, but he wasn't the weakest anymore. Then came range day. Rifle qualification with the M1 Garand at 300 yards. The recruits lined up and started shooting. When Audie's turn came, he picked up the rifle and felt the weight and balance. It reminded him of his old .22 back home, the one he'd used to keep his family fed. He aimed, breathed out halfway, and squeezed the trigger. Bullseye. Again. Bullseye. Again. Bullseye. 40 rounds. 40 hits. Perfect score. Thompson walked over and studied the target, then looked at Audie with new respect. "Murphy, where'd you learn to shoot like that?" "Back home, Sergeant. Hunting." "Hunting what?" "Rabbits mostly, some squirrels." Thompson actually laughed. "Rabbits? You learned to shoot like this hunting rabbits?" "Yes, Sergeant, we had to. If I missed, my family didn't eat that day." The laughter died. Thompson looked at Audie differently now, understanding something about this skinny kid that the others didn't. "How old are you really, Murphy?" 18, Sergeant." "That's bullshit, but okay. Keep your secrets." He put his hand on Audie's shoulder. "Listen, you're small, and you always will be, but you can shoot better than anyone I've ever seen. That matters in war. Size doesn't matter when you can hit what you're aiming at. Remember that." "Yes, Sergeant." "And Murphy, one more thing. People are going to underestimate you your whole life because of your size. Let them. Then show them what you're really made of." Audie nodded. He would remember those words. In September 1942, basic training ended. Audie graduated top of his class in marksmanship. Orders came for Fort Meade, Maryland, then advanced infantry training, then overseas. He wrote one last letter to his sister Corinne. "I'm going overseas soon. Don't know where. Don't worry about me, I'll be fine. Take care of the others. Love, Audie." But he didn't tell her he was scared, or that he lay awake at night wondering if he'd die before ever seeing real combat. He didn't tell her that part of him wanted to die because there was nothing left back home anyway. But he wouldn't quit. He'd promised his mother he'd take care of the family, and the only way to send money home was to stay in the Army. The only way to stay in the Army was to stay alive. So that's what he'd do. Stay alive, no matter what it took. In February 1943, Audie boarded a ship for North Africa. He was 17 years old and weighed 115 pounds. He stood on the deck watching America disappear, wondering if he'd ever see it again. Sicily, July 10, 1943. Operation Husky, the Allied invasion. Audie's regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, 15th Regiment, Company B, hit the beaches before dawn. Audie had never seen the ocean before this moment. Now he was wading through it while bullets snapped past his head and mortars exploded in the water around him. Men were falling and screaming, and the water was turning red. Audie just kept moving forward because that's what everyone else was doing. What else could you do? He made it to the beach and dove behind some rocks while Sergeant Kerrigan yelled over the gunfire, "Murphy, You okay? Yes, Sergeant. Good. Now stay low and move when I say. They pushed inland, fighting house to house through villages. This wasn't like training at all. This was chaos. There was smoke everywhere and you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you. Explosions came randomly. Men were screaming. Officers were yelling orders that nobody could hear. Nobody seemed to know what was actually happening. Audie just followed his sergeant and did what he was told. Somehow, he stayed alive. 3 days into the campaign, his company took a small town called Gela and dug in to wait. The German counterattack came at dawn with tanks and infantry, Audie's first real firefight. They held their position in the buildings, shooting down at Germans in the streets. Audie saw a German soldier running toward their position. He aimed his M1 Garand, breathed out, and squeezed the trigger. The German dropped. First kill. Audie stared at the body for a moment. Then another German appeared, and he shot him too. Then another. At some point he stopped counting. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it finally ended, Audie sat against a wall with his hands shaking uncontrollably. Sergeant Kerrigan sat down beside him. You okay, Murphy? Audie nodded, but he couldn't actually speak yet. First time? Another nod. It gets easier, Kerrigan said, lighting a cigarette. Sort of, not really, but you learn to live with it. Does it bother you, Sergeant, killing them? Kerrigan took a long drag. Every goddamn day. But here's the thing, Murphy. It's them or us. You didn't start this war, but you're in it now. You kill them or they kill your friends, your brothers. That's the only choice there is. There's got to be another way. If there is, nobody's found it yet. You just do your job and keep your people alive. That's all any of us can do. That became Audie's mission from then on. Keep his people alive. The Sicily campaign lasted 5 weeks, then came Italy and the landing at Salerno in September. More fighting, worse than Sicily. At Salerno, Audie watched his best friend die. Private Brandon, same age, same size, from Oklahoma. They'd trained together, shipped overseas together, fought together. People called them the Runts. An artillery shell landed near their position. Audie was thrown into a ditch, his ears ringing. When the smoke cleared, Brandon was just gone. Pieces of him were scattered everywhere. Audie vomited and couldn't stop. Kerrigan pulled him to his feet. Come on, Murphy. We gotta move. He's dead. Brandon, I know, but we're not dead yet. Now move. Something changed in Audie that day. He stopped being scared and started being angry. These Germans had killed his friend, his brother. He would kill them back, every single one he could. In October 1943, near the Volturno River, a German machine gun nest was pinning down the whole platoon. Kerrigan tried to call in artillery, but the radio was dead. Somebody's got to take out that gun, he said. Audie stood up. I'll do it. Murphy, sit your ass down. I can flank them through that draw over there. You'll get killed. Maybe, but we're getting killed here anyway. Kerrigan looked at him hard. You got 5 minutes, then we're pulling back with or without you. Audie grabbed some grenades and started moving. He crawled 300 yards through mud while bullets cracked overhead. He got behind the machine gun position, pulled the pin on a grenade, and threw it. Perfect arc. The explosion silenced the gun. He ran to the position. 2 Germans were still alive but wounded. They looked at him and put their hands up, surrendering. Audie shot them both. When Kerrigan found him standing over the bodies, he said quietly, Murphy, they were surrendering. They killed Brandon. These specific guys? Doesn't matter anymore. They're all the same to me. Kerrigan grabbed his arm. Listen carefully. You keep that up and you'll lose your humanity. You understand what I'm saying? Audie looked at him with those hard, empty eyes. Already lost it, Sergeant. That night, Kerrigan recommended Audie for promotion to corporal. He was the youngest in his company and the deadliest. Anzio, Italy, January 1944, the bloodiest campaign of the Italian theater. The Germans held the high ground, and the Allies were stuck on the beaches with artillery raining down constantly. There was no cover, nowhere to hide. Men dug foxholes and lived in them for weeks. Audie's foxhole filled with water every night, so he slept in the mud, cold and wet and miserable. But he was alive, which was more than you could say for a lot of men. Audie kept fighting and kept killing. He was a corporal now, leading a fire team of 4 men who trusted him because he had a talent for keeping them alive. His method was simple and brutal: kill the Germans before they kill us. In March 1944, near Cisterna, a German sniper was picking off Americans one by one. 3 men were down, and nobody could find the sniper's position. Audie watched and waited, patient as he'd been back home hunting rabbits. 40 minutes passed before he finally saw it, a muzzle flash in a window 600 yards away. 1 shot from his M1 Garand. The sniper fell. Lieutenant Watson came over and looked at him. "Good shot, Murphy." "Thank you, sir." "You like this, don't you?" Audie met his eyes. "Like what, sir?" "Killing." There was a long pause before Audie answered. "I'm good at it, sir." "That's not what I asked." Audie shrugged. "Doesn't matter if I like it or not. The job needs doing and I do it." Watson studied him carefully. "How old are you really, Murphy?" 19, sir." "Christ, 19 years old. Most kids your age are worried about girls and football games." "I worried about that once, sir. Feels like a different life." "What happened to that kid?" "War happened, sir. Just war." In May 1944, Audie was promoted to sergeant. Then came June in France, Operation Dragoon, the southern invasion. His company hit the beaches at Saint-Tropez with lighter resistance than Italy, and they pushed inland fast. But the Germans had dug into the Vosges Mountains, where the rough terrain made every advance costly. September brought them to Montélimar, where Audie's platoon was ambushed at night. Lieutenant Watson was hit in the first volley. "Murphy," he gasped, blood spreading across his uniform. "Take command." "Sir, we need a medic." "Too late for me. Get them out of here." "That's an order." Watson died in Audie's arms, the 3rd friend he'd lost to this war. Audie laid him down gently, then turned to the platoon. "Listen up. We're pulling back with alternating cover. You 3, cover while the rest move. Go." The platoon moved while Audie stayed behind, covering them. A German machine gun opened up on his position and he returned fire, emptying magazines as fast as he could reload, keeping the enemy's heads down until his men reached safety. He was the last one out. The next day, Captain Marks called him in. "Murphy, Watson recommended you for a battlefield commission before he died. I'm approving it. You're a 2nd lieutenant now." "Sir, I don't want it." "I'm not asking what you want, Murphy. I'm telling you what you are." "I'm not officer material, sir." "You just led your entire platoon out of an ambush without losing a single man. That's exactly what officer material looks like." Marks stood up. "Dismissed, Lieutenant." October 1944. 2nd Lieutenant Audie Leon Murphy, 19 years old, now leading a platoon of 40 men. He kept them alive better than any other officer in the company by using a simple method: lead from the front and take the same risks you ask of your men. They loved him for it and would follow him anywhere. They would need to, because January 1945 would bring the moment that defined Audie Murphy's life. The moment that made him a legend. The moment on the burning tank against impossible odds. But before that came one more battle. One more test to see if Audie Murphy was really as good as everyone thought, or just lucky. His luck was about to run out. January 1945. The Colmar pocket in eastern France, right near the German border. The Germans were making their last stand on French soil, fighting like cornered animals, desperate, vicious, willing to die for every yard of frozen ground. Audie's company moved through frozen forest where the snow was 3 feet deep and the temperature stayed below 0. Men couldn't feel their feet anymore, but they kept moving because stopping meant dying. On January 20th, they took a small town called Holtzwihr and dug in, expecting the inevitable counterattack. It came 3 days later with overwhelming force. The Germans pushed them out with heavy losses, and Company B fell back to the woods near a town called Holtzwihr. 26 men left out of the original 120. Audie's platoon was down to 18. They were exhausted, frozen, and running dangerously low on ammunition. Captain Marks called the officers together. "We hold here. No more retreating." Another lieutenant spoke up. "Sir, we're way under strength and low on everything." "I know what we are, but orders are orders. We hold this position. Audie was studying the map. Sir, this position is bad. There's an open field to the north with no cover. If they come that way, where else can we go, Murphy? I don't know, sir. I'm just saying we're badly exposed here. Then we better be ready when they come. They spent January 25th digging in as best they could, though the frozen ground made it brutal work. Audie checked on his men throughout the day, making sure they had ammunition and food and positions that might keep them alive. He found Private Tipton, a 19-year-old kid from Georgia who'd only been with the unit 3 weeks. The kid was shaking, and it wasn't from the cold. You okay, Tipton? No, sir, I'm scared. Good. Fear keeps you alert, and alert keeps you alive. I don't want to die out here, sir. Nobody does. But listen, you stay with me and do what I do, you'll be fine. You promise? Audie wanted to promise, but he couldn't lie to the kid. I can't promise that, but I promise I'll do everything I can to keep you alive. Tipton nodded slowly. That's enough, sir. That night, Audie sat in the command post with the other officers while they talked about home and families and what they'd do after the war. Audie just listened without saying much. He had no family left, no home to go back to. War was all he knew now. Captain Marks noticed his silence. Murphy, you okay? Yes, sir. You ever think about after? After the war ends, what you'll do? Audie shrugged. Never really thought I'd live that long, sir. The room went quiet for a moment. You will, Mark said. You're too good at this to die out here. A lot of good men died, sir. Better men than me. Maybe so. But you're still here, and that counts for something. Audie stood up. Going to check the lines, sir. He walked out into the bitter cold alone and looked up at the stars. It was a clear night, beautiful in its way. He thought about his mother and his scattered siblings, about Brandon and Watson and Kerrigan, about all the dead. He wondered if he'd join them soon. Part of him hoped so. He was so tired of killing, so tired of watching friends die. But another part, the part that had kept him alive this long, wanted to live, wanted to see the sun rise tomorrow, wanted to prove he was more than just a killer. He went back to his foxhole and tried to sleep, but couldn't. Something in the air felt wrong. He checked his rifle again, his grenades, his ammunition, making sure everything was ready. Because he knew with absolute certainty that tomorrow something was coming. Something bad. He could feel it in his bones. Morning came. January 26th. Dawn broke cold and gray. Audie stood in his foxhole scanning the tree line. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Then he heard it. Tank engines. Coming closer. He grabbed his binoculars and looked through the trees. 6 German tanks and what looked like 250 infantry, all coming straight at them. His company had 26 men. Audie keyed the radio. This is Murphy. We got company coming, a lot of company. The battle was about to begin. The battle that would make Audie Murphy a legend. January 26th, 1945. 10 o'clock in the morning near Holtzwihr, France. The German attack began with 6 panzer tanks and 250 infantry against Audie's company of 26 exhausted men. Captain Marks was on the radio calling for artillery support, and shells started landing among the Germans, slowing them down but not stopping them. They kept coming through the snow like a gray wave. Marks yelled to Audie over the gunfire. Murphy, get your platoon and pull back to the woods. Sir, if we pull back, they'll take this position and flank the whole line. Better than getting killed right here. Give me 5 minutes, sir. Maybe I can slow them down. With what? Audie was looking at the burning M10 tank destroyer 50 yards in front of their position. The American crew had bailed out when it took a direct hit, and the whole thing was on fire, flames and smoke pouring out of it. But the .50 caliber machine gun mounted on top was still intact. A crazy idea was forming in his head. That, he said, pointing at the burning wreck. Murphy, that tank could explode any second. It could, but it hasn't yet. It's suicide. So is staying here doing nothing, sir. Marks looked at him for a long moment. 5 minutes. Then we're gone with or without you." Audie nodded, grabbed the radio handset, and ran toward the burning tank. He climbed on top while flames licked at his boots and ammunition inside the tank started cooking off with small explosions. He grabbed the .50 caliber and swung it toward the advancing Germans. They were about 200 yards away, coming through the snow in a loose formation. Audie started firing. Long bursts sweeping left to right. Germans started falling. They saw him then, one man alone on a burning tank, and they started shooting back. Bullets clanged off the tank and whined past his head, but he kept firing. The tank shook with internal explosions. The flames were getting higher and hotter. The radio crackled with Captain Marks yelling, "Murphy, get off that thing!" "Not yet, sir. It's going to blow." "Then I better hurry." The Germans charged and he cut them down. They tried to flank him and he swiveled the gun, catching them in the open. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. His hands were burning from the hot gun barrel and his face was blackened with smoke, but he kept firing. The Germans kept coming and he kept killing them, belt after belt of .50 caliber ammunition, until the barrel glowed red. A German officer tried to rally his troops and Audie shot him first, watching him fall. 40 minutes on that burning tank with ammunition exploding constantly inside it. The whole thing could go up at any second, but Audie didn't move. He called in artillery corrections on the radio, adjusting fire onto the Germans while firing the machine gun with his other hand. Then he felt sharp pain in his leg. He'd been hit. Blood was soaking through his pants. Shrapnel or a bullet, he didn't know and didn't care. He kept firing. Finally, the Germans started pulling back. They'd had enough. One man on a burning tank had stopped an entire company. Audie fired one last burst and the gun clicked empty. He looked around and saw the Germans retreating back to the woods. He'd done it. He climbed down from the tank and his leg gave out. He collapsed in the snow and Private Tipton came running out from the trees. "Sir, you're hit." "I'm okay. Get back to cover." "Can't leave you here, sir." Audie remembered his promise to keep the kid alive. "Help me up then." Tipton got under his arm and they limped back to the lines together while the whole company stared at Audie like he was a ghost. Captain Marks shook his head slowly. "Murphy, you're the craziest son of a bitch I've ever seen." "Did it work, sir?" "It worked. You stopped them cold. How many you think you got?" Audie shrugged. "Didn't count, sir. But others did the counting later. Estimates said 50 Germans killed or wounded by one man on a burning tank for 50 minutes straight." The medic checked Audie's leg. "Not too bad, sir. Need stitches, but you'll live." Audie nodded and sat down heavily. He started shaking and couldn't stop. The adrenaline was finally wearing off and reality was setting in. He'd almost died. Should have died. That tank never exploded, which was either a miracle or luck, and he didn't know which. But he was alive. His men were alive. That was enough. February 1945. Audie was evacuated to a field hospital where doctors told him his leg wound had gotten badly infected and he was running a high fever. They said he was done fighting. They were shipping him home. Audie argued that he wanted to go back to his unit, but the doctor was firm. "Lieutenant, you've done more than enough. Go home." "My men are still out there, sir." "They'll be fine without you. I should be with them." "Son, you've earned a rest. Take it." But Audie couldn't rest. He lay in that hospital bed thinking about Company B still fighting without him, and he felt like he'd abandoned them. In May 1945, Germany surrendered, and the war in Europe was officially over. Audie was in a hospital in Naples when he heard the news. There was no celebration for him, just an empty feeling in his chest. So many dead. Brandon, Watson, Kerrigan, and dozens more whose names he could recite in his sleep. And for what? To stop Hitler? Was it worth all those lives? He honestly didn't know. June brought orders to ship home. Before he left, mail call came with a letter from Captain Marks. "Murphy, you've been recommended for the Medal of Honor for your actions at Holtzwihr. Congratulations, you earned it. See you stateside. Marks." Medal of Honor, the highest award the country could give to a soldier. Audie stared at the letter and felt nothing, just numb. He boarded a ship on June 23rd and arrived in New York on July 2nd, stepping onto American soil for the first time in 3 years. It felt foreign to him now, like a place he'd heard about but never actually lived. Reporters were waiting at the dock with cameras and notebooks. "Lieutenant Murphy, how does it feel to be home?" "Good," he lied. "What was it like on that burning tank?" "Hot." "Did you think you were going to die?" "Every single day." "What are you going to do now?" Audie looked at them blankly. "I don't know. Figure something out, I guess." He took a bus to Texas that lasted 3 days. In Dallas, there was a small ceremony at City Hall where the mayor gave a speech about heroes and sacrifice. Audie stood on the stage in his dress uniform with medals covering his chest, and he felt like a complete fraud. He wasn't a hero. He'd just done his job and managed to stay alive. The real heroes were dead, buried in military cemeteries across France and Italy and Germany. After the ceremony, a woman approached him with tears in her eyes. "Lieutenant Murphy?" "Yes, ma'am." "My son was Private Carson. He served in your platoon." Audie remembered Carson, good kid from Ohio. Died at Anzio trying to save a wounded man. "I remember him, ma'am. He was a good soldier." "Can you tell me what happened to him?" Audie didn't want to do this, but he owed her something. "He died brave, ma'am. He saved 2 men before he went down. He was a good soldier and a better man." She started crying. "Thank you for telling me. Thank you for bringing him home to us." But Audie hadn't brought Carson home, or Brandon, or Watson, or any of the dozens of others who never made it back. He'd only brought himself. He walked away because he couldn't watch her cry anymore. He took a bus to Farmersville where his sister Corinne lived. She met him at the station and hugged him so tight it hurt. "Audie, thank God you're alive." "Yeah," was all he could say. She pulled back and studied his face. "You're different. War changes people. You want to talk about it?" "No." They drove to her small farm where she lived with her husband and kids. Normal life, family dinners, laughter in the house. Audie sat at the table and felt like he was watching a movie instead of participating in real life. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing faces of the dead, Germans and Americans all mixed together in his mind. At 3 in the morning, he walked outside and sat on the porch alone. Corinne found him there. "Can't sleep?" "No." "Nightmares?" "Something like that." She sat beside him. "What are you going to do now, Audie?" "I don't know. The Army's all I know anymore." "You're 20 years old. You've got your whole life ahead of you." "I feel a lot older than 20. You'll find your way. I know you will." Would he? Audie honestly wasn't sure anymore. July 1945. Audie appeared on the cover of Life magazine with the headline, "America's Most Decorated Soldier." The photograph showed him in full dress uniform with every medal he'd earned, looking like the perfect poster boy for the war effort. He hated everything about it. In August, a letter arrived from Hollywood. It was from the actor James Cagney, one of the biggest stars in America. "Dear Lieutenant Murphy, I read about your remarkable service. If you're ever interested in acting, let me know. Hollywood could use a real hero. James Cagney." Audie showed the letter to Corinne. "You going to respond?" "I don't know how to act." "You didn't know how to be a soldier either until you learned." He wrote back. In September, Audie took a train to Los Angeles. Cagney met him at the station, a friendly Irish guy who treated him like an equal instead of a curiosity. "Murphy, good to finally meet you." "You too, sir." "Drop the sir, the war's over. You can relax now." But Audie couldn't relax. He'd forgotten how. Cagney got him an apartment and set up a screen test at Universal Studios. The first audition was a complete disaster. The director stopped him 30 seconds in. "Murphy, you're way too stiff. You need to loosen up." "How do I do that?" "Just be natural." "This is natural for me." They tried again, and it was even worse. Audie left the studio feeling like maybe he wasn't cut out for this after all. But Cagney didn't give up on him. He got Audie an acting coach and paid for drama lessons himself. Audie approached it the same way he approached everything else in his life, with grim determination and endless practice. It took months of training. but slowly he got better at pretending to be someone else. His first real role came in 1948, a small part in a movie called Beyond Glory. Then came bigger roles in Bad Boy and Kansas Raiders. By 1950, he was making enough money as an actor to support himself, though he was far from being a star. Then Universal offered to adapt his autobiography into a film. To Hell and Back, the book he'd written about the war. The studio wanted him to play himself. "I don't know if I can do that," he told them. "Why not?" "Reliving all of it, every day on set. It might be therapeutic, or it might break me completely." But he agreed to do it anyway. Filming started in 1954. They built elaborate sets that looked exactly like France and Italy, hired hundreds of actors to play German and American soldiers, and recreated every major battle Audie had fought in. Some days he couldn't tell the difference between the movie and his actual memories. The director would yell, "Cut," but Audie would still be back there, still at war. They'd have to physically shake him and bring him back to reality. "Audie, it's okay. It's just a movie." Right, just a movie. But it wasn't just a movie to him. It was his life. The burning tank scene was the hardest. They built a perfect replica of the M10 tank destroyer and set it on fire with Hollywood pyrotechnics. Audie climbed on top just like he'd done 9 years earlier. When the cameras started rolling and he looked down at those flames, heard the explosions, for one terrible moment he was actually back there. January 26, 1945. 250 Germans coming through the snow, his men depending on him. Life or death. He started shaking uncontrollably. "Cut! Audie, you okay?" He climbed down and walked away without saying anything. He needed air, needed to remember this wasn't real. The assistant director found him sitting alone behind a soundstage. "Mr. Murphy, we can use a stunt double for this if you want." "No, I'll do it. Just need a minute to get my head straight." "Take all the time you need." He went back and did the scene perfectly on the next take. The movie was released in 1955 and became a huge success. It made Audie a genuine star, famous and wealthy beyond anything he'd imagined as a kid in Texas. But it came at a terrible cost. Every night after filming, the nightmares got worse. He'd wake up screaming and covered in sweat, and his wife Pamela would try to calm him down. "Audie, you need to see a doctor about this." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're suffering." "I can handle it." "You don't have to handle everything alone." But handling things alone was all he'd ever known. Be strong, don't complain, don't show weakness. That's what had kept him alive. The movie made him rich and famous, but it also tore open wounds that had never properly healed. The war followed him to Hollywood, followed him home every night, and would follow him until the day he died. 1956. Audie Murphy was at the absolute peak of his fame. Box office star, decorated war hero, American icon. But behind closed doors, he was falling apart. The nightmares came every single night now, always the same ones. Brandon dying at Salerno, Watson bleeding out in France, the faces of Germans on that burning tank, all the dead staring at him, asking why he'd lived and they hadn't. He started taking sleeping pills, then pills to wake up, then pills to calm down during the day. The addiction crept up so gradually he didn't see it happening. His wife Pamela watched him deteriorate. "Audie, we need to talk about the pills." "What about them?" "They're taking over your life." "I need them to sleep." "You need help, Audie. Real help." "I don't need anything." There's no shame in asking for help. But Audie felt nothing but shame. Heroes didn't break down. Heroes didn't need pills. Heroes didn't have nightmares 12 years after the war ended. One night in 1957, Pamela woke to find Audie on the floor with his service pistol in his hand. "Audie, what are you doing?" He looked at her like a stranger. "They're here. The Germans are in the house." "There's nobody here. It's just us." "I can hear them." She knelt beside him. "Audie, you're home. You're safe. The war's been over for 12 years. He blinked, and recognition returned. He looked at the gun, dropped it, and started crying. "I'm losing my mind." "No, you're sick, and we're getting you help." They found a doctor who specialized in combat trauma. Not many understood it then. Later they'd call it PTSD, but in 1957 they just called it weakness. The doctor said, "What you're experiencing is common among combat veterans." Then why am I the only one falling apart? You're not. Others just don't talk about it. Audie checked into a private facility. The withdrawal from pills was hell, worse than any battle. But he fought through it. 2 months later, he was clean. He started therapy and talked about the war for the first time. About Brandon, Watson, Kerrigan. About surviving when they didn't. About killing, even enjoying it sometimes. Does that make me a monster? No. It makes you human in a terrible situation. Slowly, he got better. Not cured, but better. He learned to manage the nightmares. In 1960, he went public. He told a magazine, "I have nightmares about the war. I needed help. There's no shame in that." First major celebrity to talk openly about combat trauma. Letters poured in from veterans thanking him. "You made me feel less alone. You gave me courage to ask for help. You saved my life." Audie realized this was his new mission, helping veterans not suffer alone. He spoke at events, raised money for mental health programs, advocated for better treatment. The demons never fully left. He just learned to live with them. The war had changed him forever. He would never be that farm boy again. But he was determined that other veterans wouldn't fight their battles alone like he had. May 28, 1971. A private plane was flying from Atlanta to Martinsville, Virginia, on what should have been a routine business trip. Audie Murphy and 5 other passengers were aboard. The weather was bad, heavy fog, driving rain, visibility nearly zero. The pilot requested permission to descend to a lower altitude and air traffic control approved it. At 2:40 in the afternoon, the plane slammed into Brush Mountain near Roanoke at 3,800 feet elevation. There were no survivors. Audie Leon Murphy was dead at age 45. The news spread across America like wildfire. The whole country mourned. President Nixon issued a statement. Audie Murphy was not just a war hero. He was an American hero who gave everything for his country and then spent his life helping others who had given just as much. The funeral was held at Arlington National Cemetery on June 1, 1971, with full military honors. Thousands came, veterans in their old uniforms, politicians in dark suits, Hollywood actors, and regular people who just wanted to pay their respects. They lined the streets watching the procession. The flag-draped casket was carried by an honor guard. There was a 21-gun salute that echoed across the cemetery. A bugler played taps. 3 volleys were fired into the Virginia sky. The flag was folded with precise military ceremony and presented to Pamela. She held it while tears streamed down her face. Her daughters stood beside her, crying for a father who had survived impossible odds in war but couldn't survive a simple plane crash. Audie was buried at Arlington in Section 46, Lot 366-11. The headstone was simple white marble, identical to thousands of others in that vast field of the honored dead. Audie L. Murphy, Texas, Major U.S. Army, World War II, Korea, June 20, 1925, May 28, 1971. Medal of Honor, DSC, SS, LM. No mention of Hollywood or movies or fame. Just a soldier, the way he'd wanted it. Over the years, his grave became the second most visited site at Arlington after President Kennedy's. People left flowers and American flags and handwritten notes. "Thank you for your service. You inspired my grandfather to seek help." A real American hero. Texas named a highway after him. Fort Hood named buildings in his honor. Books were written, documentaries were made, his story was told and retold to new generations. But the best tribute came from fellow veterans who told his story to their children and grandchildren, making sure Audie Murphy would never be forgotten. Because Audie Murphy proved something that America needed to see. He proved that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when circumstances demand it. That size doesn't matter when you have heart. That being broken by war doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. That asking for help takes more courage than any battle. His legacy lives on in every veteran who seeks treatment for PTSD without shame, in every underdog who refuses to quit, in every person who stands alone against impossible odds. Audie Murphy, the farm boy from Texas who was rejected by the military for being too small, became the most decorated American soldier in history. He stood on a burning tank and held the line alone against an army. He earned the Medal of Honor and 33 total awards and decorations. He became a Hollywood star and used his fame to help thousands of suffering veterans. He fought his demons with the same courage he'd shown in combat. He died too young at 45, but his story doesn't end there. Because real heroes never truly die. They live on in the stories we tell, in the lessons we learn, in the courage they inspire in others. Audie Murphy was the real Captain America, not because he had superpowers, but because he had superhuman will. He refused to give up, refused to back down, refused to let anyone else define who he was or what he could do. He was small, but his heart was giant. He was broken, but he healed enough to help others heal. He was haunted, but he fought back against the darkness. That is his legacy. That is his gift to all of us. The knowledge that we all have that strength somewhere inside us. We just have to find it the way Audie did, on that burning tank, against impossible odds. With everything to lose and nothing left but will, he found it and became a legend forever.